Uh, as a liberal, I am a little bit concerned with the fact that people tend to confuse the free market conservatists with the real liberals. Because from the times of Reagan and Thatcher, this combination of free market economy and social conservatism is very typical for many right-wing parties in the Western world. And not only in Western world, it also manifests itself with this. The phenomenon also manifests itself in form of neo-Confucianism, so-called neo-Confucianism in China, and similar movements in other parts of Asia. When we talk about free market conservatism, because in the 19th century it was typical for the conservatives to be economically protectionists, and they were usually dealing with agrarian business and in agriculture, and it is a very typical tendency for agriculture and for people who are representing agriculture to be protectionistic, because to input big tolls for products for foreign countries and so on. But during the 19th century and early 20th century, the conservatives realized that they could be easily free market oriented, and they made the free market especially since the times of Reagan and Thatcher, but it was visible already in times of for instance Theodore Roosevelt and I know President Harding, President McKinley, for instance, in the States. And those free market conservatives, they are liberal only in this, because liberalism is a vast ideology that concerns many aspects of human life, and free market is only one of the effects of liberalism, because the core of liberalism is not free market. The core of liberalism consists of the rule of the law and equality of human rights, that all people are equal, and when all people are equal and the law respects that rule, then it's very natural to pursue your dreams, also economical dreams, and you can start a business and no one could interfere. Of course you will be taxed, but because no state could function without taxes. And what's very typical, and for the free market conservatives like Reagan and Thatcher and their successors, like in Poland it would be Janusz Korwin-Mikke, for instance, they are confusing all the time the anarchy of the free market, the totally free market, when there's no real taxation and no real benefits for the greater masses of people, no social system, and they are presenting this hypothetical situation as freedom, but it's not really freedom, it's anarchy. The conservatives, not only those who are advocating free market, but also those paleo-conservatives, which are more satisfied with the remainings of feudalism, or the monarchists and so on. They very often tend to confuse the anarchy of the kingdoms in the past, in the 18th century, 17th century, the continental, especially France and Austrian Empire and several, the Kingdom of Spain and so on, and the situation within those states with freedom. And what we could observe as historians could observe in those states of the past, that it was not freedom, it was anarchy, because the people were not guarded. Human rights, the equal rights, were not guarded by the law, by the system of the law, by judges, by the police, and so on. So because the king was not responsible to people, but he was responsible to God, it was only in a manner of speaking, but so he was in fact responsible to no one, maybe to his priests who are interpreting the word of God for him. But so he was not responsible to people, so he wasn't obliged to do much for them. And that's why the states of the past are so minimalistic in their expenditures, in their structure. So we shouldn't confuse this anarchy where all people could be arrested immediately when it was judged that they could be present some threat to the state, and it was immediate. For instance, the famous or infamous French lettre de cachet, it was one of the core elements of the program of the encyclopedists and philosophers in the 18th century France, to ban those lettres de cachet, because it was an order to arrest any French subject in any moment when judged he could be or she could be dangerous to the state. So, well, it was a clear abuse of human rights and liberty and human dignity as well. It doesn't mean that sometimes those people shouldn't, maybe they should be arrested sometimes, but not all the time, and there are many examples of people who are just not comfortable for the king or court or the party which was dominant at the moment in the court. So and for instance the clear difference between the free market conservative and the liberal we could observe in domain of schooling, of education, because the free market conservative would tend to eliminate all influence of the state on education, and they would I don't know, promote privatization of the whole sector. And the liberal would be much more concerned with those other kind of abuses that could be in schooling, in education, or in also in homes, in families, because for instance the patriarchal authoritarian family, where only the will of one member of that family is respected, is no problem for a conservative, because they are authoritarian in character. They tend to be patriarchal, authoritarian, but it's a problem for a real liberal. So the real liberal would be concerned, of course, with the abuse of the power of the state, and he would not be of an opinion, for instance, like many socialists used to be, that it's very good that the state controls everything and everyone, but the liberal would be a little bit also a bit concerned about the situation in families, because the liberal would know that the human dignity and human rights are endangered, in danger, not only as far as the state is concerned, but also as far as the society and the oppressive, or more or less oppressive forms of culture are concerned. So there would be, in education we could see the clear difference between the liberals and the free market conservatives.